Hello again. Please allow me to introduce you to our second team for our second project of the day. For the members of this team, Daniel Golding, Sherry Payne, Elias Mahi, and Keiju Sanada. It's not wrong.
After more than 8 years.
Very true. Our client for this project is SpArk. This is a platform that aspires to create a framework for return to play for athletes after concussions. So, you know, it's a very big topic in the medical industry, and not so much data has been available, but I will leave the floor to the team to take you through this. So, great.
Thank you, Dimitris, for the introduction. So thank you everyone for being here. As explained by Dimitris, today we're going to discuss concussion in sport. Concussions are an issue in many sports, just to name a few, and the obvious ones would be American football, skiing, cycling, basically anything that involves, you know, head trauma. The agenda for today. So we're going to start with some figures. No, sorry, we're going to start with, again, a few words about the company, our client SpArk. And after that, we're going to provide some figures on concussions. We will address some existing technologies that already are in the market. After that, we'll present a list of a few companies that our client could have as customer or maybe more as partners. And in the end, we will address some business aspects. Now I hand it over to Sherry.
Thank you, Elias. All right, so start a little bit about SpArk. SpArk is located in Sion in the Canton of Valais. It has been working in sports performance at the intersection between technology and industry. The SpArk will be, in 2025, will be moving to the health center in Sion, alongside the Sion Hospital and the School of Health, among others, part of a hub that they're creating in Sion. The objective of the company upon moving there is to focus on concussion prevention and treatment and return to play for athletes. The objective of our project was to create a plan for the exploitation phase of a clinical platform. And by platform, I mean a mechanical, physical, moving platform that an athlete could step on with potentially with the use of virtual reality in order to help retrain entry into sport. So working with innovators and researchers at this new hub and developing with the platform, the platform itself, its embedded systems and neuromotor training solutions in order to be able to provide objectifiable, measurable, standardized measures and to train and track an athlete's progress through their recovery and concussion to determine when they are ready to re-enter sport. I'll hand it back or over to Daniel.
Yep. It will be. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, no. Back to Bill, can you? Yep.
Yeah, there's
It's not working?
delay apparently. Will be changing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so first, before Daniel, research methodology, I'll go over to what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be getting into the public health costs of concussions, going over some interviews we conducted, some of the medical literature we reviewed, and conversations with medical insurance companies in Switzerland. All right, so one of the tasks we were charged with was assessing the public health, the economic impact of concussions, the cost of concussions. One of the most comprehensive and extensive studies we came across about the economic impact of concussions was conducted by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which is a public health agency in the United States. This paper looked at the cost of concussions for 3 different types of insurance. Private insurance, I mean, it's a bit different in the United States. Private insurance, federal insurance, and state insurance, looking how much they paid out for concussions over a 12-month time period. As you can see here, it totals up to just over $3.5 billion. Some of the considerations when we looked at publications was there was a use of mild traumatic brain injury and concussion. They were kind of spoken about interchangeably. And when we looked at some of the literature, a lot of it was focused more on traumatic brain injuries, not necessarily the mild version, the concussion. Injuries sustained, let's say, in a car accident, resulting in skull fractures. So a lot of the research out there was more on that. So be able to separate and delineate between those concussions, the mild version and the more severe, was a bit of a challenge. And when we were able to look at some of the numbers, there was often a very, very wide range. So signifying the need to focus more specifically on concussions and get a little bit more information. All right, now today.
Yeah, after that, what we wanted to do is aim for, we held interviews, which will be coming.
Doing my best.
With the interviews, what we wanted to do is aim for being able to talk with people who work in the field, specialists, medical doctors that knows concussions. And we wanted to take advantage of our group diversity coming from Asia, Europe, North America, and Latin America. But the results were not satisfactory, since we tried to reach for these doctors, but the reality was that we didn't receive any positive answer, and the only interviews that we held, we didn't receive financial information. And we wanted to do another twist and talk with public government ministries and things like that, who had the public data from the government, but as well, we weren't able to do it. One of the interviews, Elias will talk about it.
Right. So because we are in Switzerland, we still can address the result that we've had in Switzerland. Basically, we've been able to engage with 2 different institutions. The first one being the SUVA, so the Statistics Center in Switzerland, basically. They told us that between 2016 and 2020, concussions average of about 4 million per year in terms of health costs. Now, these numbers need to be taken with a pinch of, with some refraining, because basically what's happening is that it doesn't account for all the concussions that were not diagnosed, as in I'm concussed, I don't go to the doctor, or misdiagnosed. So it's probably even more than 4 million per year. Second company that we engaged with was Groupe Mutual, one of the largest health insurer in Switzerland. Unfortunately, they didn't have figures to provide us, but they said that on paper, they could try to have an approximation of the cost of concussion for their company, but it was too much work for them for an academic paper, so it didn't go further than that. Back to Daniel.
Yeah, after that, we wanted to look for another source, which was medical literature, which we wanted to not only go into medical books, but also research paper made on the field. As it can be shown in this chart, there are only a few financial information that we were able to gather, but this was not comparable with what we wanted, just because in the slide, as it can be shown, even though that you can say that concussion is related to sports, the reality is that the medical paper, medical research has shown us the contrary, having only 14% of the medical research papers related to sports, which it was 2 out of 14. And yes, we were able to have financial information, but once again, if it was not in the sporting business, we didn't feel comfortable to use that as a base. So next, what we are going to show you, Kijiro will talk about the existing technologies in the concussion.
Thank you, Daniel. So let's move on to the existing technology. So we listed up 9 products and divided them into 3 sections: the protection, diagnosis, recovery, to understand the big picture of concussion market and to know where is the possibility for SpArk. So first we think of, let's see, the protection. So this is the easiest part for us to imagine the product, to think about helmet used in ice hockey or American football. So they've seen the development over the year. And we can see the strong trend even in the sports like football. So mostly the female player and young player are increasingly wearing the headband headgear to protect concussion. And diagnosis in this area, lots of companies working on the product developments like BearMind and Shockbox. These companies have developed the sensor or sensor-equipped helmet to measure the head impact, to deliver the variable measurement or insight into whether the player who suspected concussion can continue to play or not. And recovery in this area, the few companies that address the return to play process, and the responsibility still falls in the hospitals and team doctors, and there are limited products and services. And this area, the recovery, is that the SpArk is addressing, and and it's worth noting that there are few companies that could cover the multiple sectors. And if SpArk in the future can expand to cover the business area, we believe that SpArk can make a significant impact on this market. So this next topic is potential customers. So firstly, we realized that this three types of companies are the top potential customers: the startups and the own state-owned company, and established the health technology company. But when it comes to the startup, it's very difficult to identify the best startup to collaborate with SpArk, because each startup has own purpose and it doesn't link with SpArk project. And as for the state-owned company, we only found just one company, which is a Chinese company, and they research only on the pharmaceutical side. So that's why we decided to focus on the established health technology company. So here we set up the 11 company. This is 11 company actually, and these as a potential customers, and the 3 from the US and 4 comes from Europe and 3 from the Asia. And all of these companies have strong business at the concussion market or at this neurosurgical area. And also these companies have strong connection and deep understanding about the concussion market. So that's why we chose this company as a potential customer. So let's move on to the next.
I'll take it over. Thank you, KJ. So moving on to the business aspect of our project. So basically, one tool that we really wanted to use to see how the potential of this project was the SWOT analysis. For those of you who may not know what this is, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is what we came up with. Sherry is going to explain you the strengths and weaknesses first.
Yeah, so starting with strengths to determine whether or not SpArk wants to take the risk and go forward with this project. We consider strength the fact that SpArk is already working at the intersection of technology and sport. It does some hypoxia training, among other things. And in 2025, when it moves locations to the new building in the health center campus, it'll be in the hub of Sion. So its proximity to and potential access to researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs is much higher. And therefore, they might be able to find a partner to help take this technology forward.
Here's what I found.
And as far as weaknesses go, if SpArk is unable to find a partner, then weaknesses that they might not have the funding to build and develop this technology to get it to a functional state. Another thing is that SpArk focuses in several areas of sports performance. So this new venture into concussion treatment would only be one aspect of SpArk, and therefore it calls into question whether or not it will have the amount of focus and attention that's necessary to really drive the initiative forward. Obviously, finding a partner would help with that. And then when it comes to another weakness, there's no data to suggest that training on such a platform, with or without the use of virtual reality, would be superior to other forms of training in helping an athlete recover from concussion. There is an ability to track and measure, so that might help standardize the training procedures. But as far as their claim on helping, or as far as their claim on prevention of concussions, there's no data to suggest that training on this platform and increasing reaction time and motor skills and proprioception would in any way help prevent the likelihood of a concussion happening again. So I'll hand it back to Elias to discuss.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, the opportunities now. So concussions are an overall issue that does not only touches people in sport, but it goes beyond that. We're thinking here about the elderly, for instance. So that means that if SpArk can go all the way with this project, it could also help elderly people to maybe detect concussion, but mostly to help them avoid falls and such. Now, another opportunity would be linked to the fact that there is an increase of awareness when it comes to concussion. There are many leagues that are now changing their rules. In football, for instance, in the UK, the young kids are not allowed to use their head anymore. So it's something that really needs to be addressed, and that's where SpArk could come in. And finally, yeah, as already mentioned, we're here in Switzerland with some of the best universities when it comes to technology. So that means that there is a clear opportunity for SpArk to link up with universities such as the EPFL or the EPFZ in Zurich and collaborate with them in that regard. Now, in terms of threats, as presented by KG, some competitors are already on the market. They're more advanced in certain aspect of this project. So that's a threat for SpArk. It's a quite young company, so that means that there might be a lack of reputation for the moment, so they will need to build their reputation first before entering into market. We've had the discussion with our clients who couldn't be here today, but the end user in Switzerland at least may not be interested in the product. So when we were discussing about football club or ice hockey clubs in Switzerland, you were saying that maybe they would not have the means to use that platform, so that might be an issue, at least in Switzerland. And the final point would be that there is maybe some contradiction in speeches from leagues and federation, because looking at the NFL, for instance, they have to say that the health of their athletes come first. But on the other hand, the whole sport is based on the fact that people get concussed maybe twice per game, something like that. So there is some awkwardness in that regard. Now moving on to a second tool, but it's going to be brief, that we wanted to use. It was the business model Canva. So basically, this is a way of showcasing how your company operates its business, or how it could operate its business. We knew from the beginning that SpArk would not necessarily be a classical business model. We still wanted to try to see how it would fit within the business model Canva model. We were not necessarily convinced by the results, so we quickly decided that that was not the way to go for SpArk, and we looked at different options that we presented, and I will let Daniel say a few words about this.
Yeah, about the financial consideration, what we wanted to say here is that considering the fact that a company, when it starts a new business, cost is like one major issue. And considering also that SpArk might not have all the expertise in this technology, what we have suggested in this case is either do a joint venture or a cost-sharing agreement with a third party in order to being able to have a synergy, and also mitigating the risk of being in a financial position that could harm the company for the future, in case if this project continues and doesn't have the result that the company expects. So for our final consideration and conclusion, Elias will talk about
Yeah, thank you, Daniel.
5 minutes. Thank you.
So basically, our assessment on this project, we believe that the potential to enter the concussion market is quite high for the following reason. So first, as mentioned, the awareness about the issue of concussion is increasing yearly. So just to look at the concussion movie starring Will Smith, this is the small things that make the public aware of concussion. So that means that there is a real need to address, and that's where we believe SpArk could come in. Now, also, there is a clear lack of standard treatment around the world. So that means that 5 people getting concussed in different countries will likely receive 5 different treatments. So there is a clear need for a standard treatment, and hopefully SpArk can play a role in that sense also. And third, we've presented some competitors' product, but there is no company that is clearly crushing the market as of today. So that means that there is clearly space to enter this market. Now we've showcased the business model Canva. That was not the way to go for us. We clearly think that looking at a joint venture or cost sharing agreement is more interesting with some of the companies that we've listed in our paper. And if not, there is clearly the potential to approach the universities in Switzerland for SpArk with its network, EPFL and EPFZ. So there is clearly the potential to do something for this project. And on that note, we conclude our presentation and we thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Dear jury members, okay. Any questions for our team?
Of course. So we'll try to let some time so that the public can ask questions afterwards, since the client is not could not make it. Thank you for your lively presentation. I had the opportunity to go through your paper. Many questions, and we'll limit them to something we should be in a position to answer now. What about something in between economy and law? I know you said clearly in your paper you didn't really deal with the IP issues. That's a bit complex, but isn't it so much of the essence as to what you recommend, some kind of joint venture, some kind of cost sharing agreement, to first define maybe what would be what revenue stream could be created through this, thanks to the participation of SpArk, some creation or sharing, some suggestions, recommendations to one of the maybe big pharmaceutical companies who would be interested. So that the IP owners are not only, it's not only the big player in the joint venture, and that SpArk gets some return on also on its investment. Because just talking about which way they should follow joint venture cost sharing agreement without knowing exactly how the revenue would be shared through the IP aspects, it's a bit puzzling to me, so I'm
sure
willing to.
I guess I'll take that one. So basically, we believe that this is something that will come at the further stage. So far, we had to focus on maybe the first steps or where to go, but definitely they will need to those would be issues to address at some point with SpArk's lawyer at the time, but definitely how the agreements would work with this company in terms of probably the IP rights will definitely remain with SpArk because they're the owner. I don't know yet if they patent the whole platform. I believe that they have, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's something that will need to be dealt, we believe, at a later stage. And not having partners already, we have in mind some partners, but not going through that first step of going to those companies and see how we could frame the collaboration between those two, we couldn't address all of those issues, I would say.
But I understand this is not something that needed to be in the paper at length, but if you're in a joint venture with one of those big companies, they will probably want to keep a stake, in terms of equity, where SpArk would be just the little partner within the joint venture. Normally, that's the usual image that we get from the market. So then, if there is any revenue related to IP, it would probably go mostly, if not all, to the big company. In a cost-sharing agreement, maybe they participate in the cost of developing something and not getting the right return. This is why it seemed to me to be a question to be addressed quite early in the process of deciding what should be the collaboration or joint venture or something like this.
Yeah, and on that point, thank you for the question. I would say that it really depends on which direction SpArk wants to go. We would be maybe more recommending them to try to really use their network with the EPFL or EPFZ and link up with students and go with a startup where they have the upper end instead of going to those companies. But still, we wanted to showcase that there are definitely opportunities, experts over there that you could reach out to and try to have some agreement. Definitely, if you go to Fujifilm or some of those companies, SpArk would be the little player here, although they would be bringing the product. But that then is definitely up to SpArk to decide again which direction they choose and how they can have the best agreements basically with those companies if that's the way they want to go.
So maybe just for the client, this would be something to add in the business model canvas within the revenue stream, because that's a potential revenue, additional revenue stemming from the collaboration. And then why do you think there are only 2 out of 14 studies in the medical literature that you cited that are related to sport?
Actually, I just made myself the same question because it was really focused only on other types of injuries, not injuries, in other scenarios, but not in sports. I would believe that I don't want to say like I'm the evil advocate, but maybe there is some huge lobby from the NFL that fights for this information not to be public. So if we put this, if some random guy starts, not random, but an expert start to do research on sports injuries, for sure. There are lobbies and the sport federation that could block this or pay that guy to shoot out, and it will depend on the spirit of the expert, whether or not he wants to do it just to make aware of the public to know that, or to be able to cash in something.
It literally just described the movie Concussion with Will Smith.
Yeah, but in the end, yes, that's what I found, and I think one of the sport-related paper was from the soccer from New Zealand in women's. So I don't want to dismiss this sport, but comparing with huge other federation, this won't play an impact, to be honest, in the sport industry, at least at this moment.
Just wanted to make sure you were aware of this, and you are.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation, for your report. I went through it with a lot of interest. And I have a question. I have a couple of questions. The first is linked to the prior one. If you look at basically technologies or anyway that are the market for concussion not related to sport, did you address the point of how this anyway can be used anyway for concussion? So to justify the real need for technology to be developed for sport related concussions. At the end, in the market, if there is a market, if there is in some way a need to fulfill, or if we can create the need in some way or justify that the need is there, and communicate that the need is there. So I was reflecting on, okay, well, the other type of technology, if they're really in some way addressing the market needs. I understand that the market is fragmented, but is there a specific need for sports related? I'm ignorant, so it's a question for you. You know way more than what I know on this. Can you tell me a little more?
Yeah. Right. No, I would say that our main focus was first that there are already some products that exist in sports, so it's true that we focused mainly on those. to really have the competitors from SpArk directly. But it's true that looking at different technologies, see how they could apply to maybe sports is usually how innovation works. That's something that we've learned here in IESTS. So it's something that we could have done better, probably, I would say. Because I don't know if any of you guys can think of a technology that comes from outside of sport that could apply to concussion, but we already had those 9 products.
And vice versa, how the new technology for sport then can even be used for concussion not related to sport, right?
Well, then,
We did get into more of like the baby boomer elderly generation, which is like a pretty large subset of the population, and this potential use for individuals who sustain a fall, and we're trying to monitor their cognitive abilities, their motor skills, to be able to train back to a level, and then also assess over time. Let's say they didn't fall and have a concussion, but let's say they're 80 and they'd really like to address not falling and not having a concussion, using this technology to train on a regular basis to make sure that they stay tip-top shape and reduce the chances of having a fall and sustaining a concussion.
And this is not necessarily related to sport, right? It does relate to sport also,
No.
but not necessarily, right? So
Yeah.
but this
I
is
was missing maybe a little bit.
Yeah, we briefly touched on it. We could have
this is one of
expanded.
the opportunity that we foresee for SpArk here. The first one being the overall health issue. So it's not only related to sport and
Sure.
that can be applied.
But I would emphasize it a little bit more, given the fact that at the end, this center needs to be, let me say, this platform needs to be at the end really developed, right?
Yeah.
So there is, I didn't see exactly what is the current state for this technology being there in order really to convince other partners to invest, because at the end, what I understood the SpArk needs is money, right? To keep developing this, right?
Yeah.
That's what I understood. Otherwise, you don't come up with, okay, let's verify whether there is a real business model with numbers that can sustain this idea, then you might even think to invest your own money, if they have, I don't know, or to find additional funders. Please, maybe Daniel, you wanted to say something on this, because I see you're reacting.
No, because SpArk, maybe money, we don't know for a fact that they are in need to search a partner or a founding partner, but what they at this stage we were able, they had the doubt of what the target market should be, whether the customer goes to Sion and rehabilitate, or expand this solution across Europe or across Switzerland. So those were mainly the first doubts that they have as a company. This idea, the company has that doubts. Now, when we include the part of the financial part, because it is a risk that it has to be taken into consideration, since developing a new platform with virtual reality and the training is a financial cost that could impact SpArk, and I don't know how profitable would it be if they don't manage to control those costs as well.
But I think you rose a point which is very interesting that I didn't really capture through the report. That was a question regarding the business model. So how you really design your business model. That is, as you said, you bring customer Sion in the new building. At the end, then they're going to invest in this new building. Probably, I don't know the financing side of it, but then they're going to need to use the building. So you have a problem of exploitation of an existing capacity that will be there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have another question, which is, no, I don't necessarily need to use that capacity. I want to develop something with a distribution completely differently across Europe or whatever. So this, I think, is another point that I didn't really see here, but I think is very interesting. Then my perception of this was that they are in a phase of exploration. And therefore, when you are in a phase of exploration in research and development type of project, level of uncertainty regarding what could be the result is super high.
Yeah.
So therefore, when if you want to invest a lot of money, if they think that there is a lot of money to invest in this technology, there is also higher risk. So sharing this, of course, could be an idea, right? For many reasons. But anyway, but thank you for adding this information because it helped me to understand a little bit more this. Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. It's really interesting to see how the technology for the concussions in schools can be used. And then, yeah, I have some of the questions that always, that I know Julie's always have the difficulties to, to ask you some different questions. But during this presentation, and also I already read through your paper, you did not mention really the legal risk if he tries to launch this project. So I really want to know what kind of legal risk exists for the SpArks in Switzerland. So do you know some ideas or something concerning the legal issues in?
Well, I would say the first one that I can see is whenever you're engaging with a potential partner, you definitely need a non-disclosure agreement. One risk is maybe overshowing what you have, give the idea of, okay, this is something that we should look at on our own. Because, I mean, the company that we've listed, they have way more money than SpArk has. So if you go in there, showing your cards too much, there is an issue there. So be sure whenever engaging with a partner that you took all the precaution you could think of. That's one thing. Now I can think of in terms of that's
about maybe the platform itself. If it doesn't work, and we are assuring that it will be a legal issue that will figure out at us. So if we if we put a patient and do this, and if he's not recovering, he is developing, or at least his injury will be getting worse, which could impact us negatively as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was going to go that way as well. In terms of responsibility, you need to think of this is a platform, this is moving. So basically, like you could have, as any physiotherapy session, you could have someone that gets injured. So you need to think about that aspect. And then, as Daniel mentioned, basically, what if the platform makes a mistake and tells you that you can go back to sport and you send someone, and then there is something really serious that happens. This is also some legal consideration to have in mind. Make sure that you're protected, that you can, in terms of liability, that you can shift that away, not from you, but onto the patient, basically.
So it may that SpArk does not have the responsibility for the technologies for the concussions.
Sorry, I couldn't get
If I understand correctly, if there is some legal issues happen, and then afterwards the SpArk platforms can, how can I say, reduce this responsibility to the others. Is that correct?
It depends. Yeah, it's how you would manage, but that's something that happens in. It's like whenever you play football, for instance, you basically agree that you can get injured. So that's part of the game. So it's all about accepting that responsibility. So here would be the same. It's basically making sure that the person that goes through the platform and the recovery process and the testing, can I return back to sport?
So we have to use this technology. So when we use the technologies, we will face some of the legal issues.
Yeah.
So do you already analyze these aspects when you use this technology? Because platforms, we can welcome for athletes, and then the entry for support for the athletes to re-enter the sports. There is no problem. And then if there is some of the legal issues, contracts and others, the platforms have to regulate this. There is one issue. And then when we use the technology, we will also have some legal issues, right? So that's why you already mentioned in your paper some existing the technology for concussions. And then I want to know if there is some legal cases or legal issues exist when other companies already use that technologies. So that is the second point. So do you have any ideas? If you don't have, there is no problem, but just I'm very curious.
Yeah, sure.
So
No. On the spot like that, I don't have any example. I don't know if you guys do.
Now, the only example that I could say is when a player goes back, even though that he has completed all the, for example, in the NFL or in Major League Baseball, just 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago passes that player played for 2 months with a concussion without knowing it, but because when he was not entering the exactly protocols and by not doing that, they couldn't say that he had a concussion, and so this could have represent a legal issue for the club, or in a case in the NFL, in the league, if their concussion protocol doesn't detect that you are injured and you are potentially you can be a candidate to get a when they sue you because of malpractice. So, but in terms of a specific technology and how is that work, maybe we don't have that information in deep.
Okay, so thank you so much. And I know that is really tough if you don't have really, the legal backgrounds to answer these questions, but for the clients, it's really important things to know legally how to launch the project. Okay. And then afterwards, it's really safe to launch it. So that's why I ask you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We could take a couple of more minutes to see if anyone from the audience has any question. Yes, please.
I have many questions. Several. In your business model, so you're working in an area where there's many different players with different interests at stake. And so in your business model, have you made any distinctions between who the users are, the payers, the providers, insurance companies? Have you disentangled that and kind of made it a little bit simpler for the client to understand how they're going to progress in the next 5 years through the development and the scientific technology process? Because each one of those different players in this ecosystem can derail the process of how you scientifically validate, roll out, and develop this product for the end users, whether it's leagues or clinics or hospitals. So any insights on that?
So maybe in terms of different stakeholders. So what happens is that at first we thought straight about the end user who would be using the platform, and briefly, very quickly, I would say the client came back to us and was like, okay, that's nice, but I'm definitely not at that stage. So we really had to focus only on the first link, I would say, and he really wanted us to find some partners to bring some either expertise or money, but that's where really quickly where we stopped, and the discussion never went beyond that, to be honest, although we wanted to. I mean, our idea at first was really to have that platform, and maybe you can license the platform and build it across the world and have all those different users, whether it's sport or not even linked to sport, we had all those big plans, and very quickly the client was like, no, this is going way too far. We need to focus on the first stage, really, the companies or the startup that could come and help us develop the platform.
Why not leagues? Did you explore leagues?
We did explore. Basically, we had the whole presentation with Sherry. We went to Sion to meet with our client. We had leagues, we had clubs, athletes. We listed all the end users that we could think of. And
yeah, he basically said his experience in the world of sport has told him that the leagues will not be interested in it. They don't put a lot of emphasis on like using a platform like this to either help recover an athlete or to potentially make it so they're less likely to sustain a concussion. He said in his experience, he doesn't think that that's going to be an interest.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a letdown, but very quickly we were brought back to reality, and guys focus maybe on the first thing, find me companies or startups that could help us with this project.
I'm very sorry, but there's no time for more questions. But again, the group is here. You can just ask any questions outside the person. I would like to thank you all very much, team, for your work in a project with several limitations. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, jury members, for the questions.
Thank you for supervising.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.